Once we did a little tour in Byron Bay, which was great. It was me, Laurie Belger, Adine Hickey, Tess Waters, and we did that with Mandy Nolan and Ellen Briggs. And it was great fun. And I did an interview for a local radio station, and the guy asked me, what's the difference between being a female comic and a male comic? And I just said to him, well, a male comic would never get asked that question. That's next. That's the difference.
So, do you think it might be problematic having an issue about women for a magazine? Do you think there are any issues that might arise from that? An issue just about women? What do you think?
I would believe it's probably Yawp's call.
Yes.
Sorry.
Of course.
I mean, I'm glad that you've decided to do that, and I mean that's your call. I mean, for every article that gets written in that sort of like, women funny, you have the sort of immediate backlash of course they are.
Yeah.
If you want to celebrate it, then by all means celebrate it.
Of course.
I mean, some people would say, not some people, but like when you celebrate something, it's also you're setting it apart from other things.
Yes.
And sort of holding up. So some people go, why do we have to celebrate it? And it's like, well, maybe we do have to celebrate it until we don't need to celebrate it anymore.
I know that there's people that will criticise that concept of all female gigs, and I don't believe in ghettoising, I suppose, like that. Up front was always, you had to be a good comedian. It was the first thing. It wasn't, oh, you're a woman, come on board. No, because that was always counterproductive. Right. Hate those gigs. Oh, you're a woman. Oh, please come on board. No, if you're shit, don't go on. No. But in the 90s, then it was absolutely necessary. Absolutely necessary, just because of the terrible... It was actually pretty shit now I think about it. Just the... fair bit of open sexism and sexual harassment. So believe it or not.
Yeah.
And so look, that's the thing is I like to create around me something where people that I would see having something in common with a young me would feel comfortable there.
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of disadvantages only in as much as people's assumptions about you and people's what people assume going into the show. I do hate that people actually still say things like, oh yeah, they were pretty good for a female comedian. Or even just calling someone a female comedian.
Do you think there is a lack of female comedians?
Yeah, but that's alright. It makes it easier to get the job.
Yeah.
To rip them down. That's
how it should stay.
Yeah. But if you're a female... There's that audience thinking like, oh, well, she's a lady comic, unless they're like normal comedy punters. Like, oh, yeah, she's not a comic. But if they're not, they're like, what? This is not what I was What was the question again?
I don't know, but I like where you were going.
Experimental. Oh, yeah, that's right. Experimental. So it's like, they don't know who you are, and they kind of, like, oh, you're going to do lady shit or something. Oh, I don't know. Period jokes. God damn. They're like, oh, she's not like the other 10 guys who've been on. And so you're like, they kind of give you the room to like surprise them even more.
We just try and make sure that women are given as much stage time as possible. And I will admit, sometimes it is hard because, as I said, there are so many male comedians and a lot fewer female comedians. And so, when we've sort of done our lineups, sometimes we have to put on maybe a few less women just because, we've used them up. We've run out.
I suppose I don't attend to a gender thing. It's like, it's that weird thing of, what do you think of women's comedy? You go, I don't know, what's that? I don't know, it's just like... There's just comedy, and sometimes it's done by women, and sometimes it's done by men, and sometimes it's, intersex people, and sometimes there's, again, the generalisations that journalists require don't necessarily match up match up with what the reality is.
The more women that get into stand-up comedy, and the more people that are on stage, the less irrelevant the women in comedy argument becomes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the more people are just used to it till it becomes exactly like it is, 50-50.
Yeah,
in real life.
That's kind of the reason that we're doing this issue, because we thought, well, there is a lower number of women in comedy, generally speaking, than men. And until it comes to a 50-50 thing, it's always going to be, oh, you're a comedian. Oh, you're a female comedian. Oh, okay, that puts you in a separate category. But it shouldn't be separate. It should be, I'm just a comedian.
And yeah, I mean, it is. And I hate that even, like, comedian as well really annoys me. Like, I don't tell, like, jokettes. Like, stop it!
It's accessible to all.
People, yeah, or the sort of the occasional condescending, now she's a lady, before, like, you get introduced on stage and stuff.
Does that happen often?
It's happened a couple of times, and people don't mean anything by it at all, but there's still just a touch of, like, come on, don't treat me nice.
Well, I certainly know what it was like with me as a young performer starting out.
Right, yeah.
In the 90s, okay, well, here's the thing, because there's things that I experienced when young, then I don't want others to experience.
Okay.
And one of the big things is sexual harassment in the workplace. Bang! Where, in other workplaces, then there are very strict rules for that, and there's legislation, etc. In a open mic comedy room, then when you're a young woman, then you've got, weird ass guy over there, you're trying to prepare to go on stage, and weird ass guy's trying to crack onto you.
I say this often to my friends and to myself mainly, but I think all comedians are big fat losers. It's the greatest. It's like, this is so great. All of my friends are just big fat losers, and like the hierarchy, they're all still giant losers.
Yeah.
Like, they're just the biggest nerds. Like, I just want to do this and do that, and occasionally they're like, oh, I can do drugs, but you're like, yeah, but you're still a big fat loser, so it's still fine. So I think they're just more guy losers than are girl losers, because I think in life, in high school, like, the girls are always slightly prettier because girls are being told to be prettier.
I don't. I get what you're saying. It's kind of like
Because they're just a whole
guys
lot.
have to be funnier in evolution to get girls, whereas girls just get by on their looks more. So if you're one of the girls that wasn't the pretty girl, you had to be more funny. So maybe you had more of that opportunity to get by on your personality, I suppose.
But also I think there's just less loser girls than there are loser guys.
Okay.
It's the whole, like, in high school there was like so many loser guys, but they were great fun, and there was just a less amount of loser girls because they're like, I'm not a loser. Kind of saying loser a lot.
I'm a princess.
I'm a princess.
I mean, at local laughs, I'll put on all female nights, but not mention it.
Not mention it.
Or it's mostly female, but it's sort of, there's quite a lot of girls on, but not necessarily, it's not an all-female gig. So, again, I'll just, when it just strikes me as being a good way to book, and I'll go, oh, look, what's happening? Oh, that's going to be interesting. And I just don't say things about certain lineups. I just go, oh, yeah, that's just a really good lineup.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, the boys' club only exists at the lower levels.
Interesting.
It's the open mic scene tends to be like that, because again, it's like, okay, here's the thing, is that the perception of the ratio of men to women in the open mic scene is different to upper rung, because if you're programming a ticket selling night, who are you going to program? You're going to go, okay, who sells tickets? Dave Hughes, Kitty Flanagan, Tom Gleeson, Denise Scott, Judith Lucy, Adam Hills. Now, the top rung tends to be really much more gender balanced.
Right.
So, Hannah Gadsby, Carl Barron. So when you get to that rung, then it's actually pretty evenly balanced for who are the real ticket sellers.
Right.
So I don't necessarily identify a gender thing with comedy, but I do identify a necessity to help disenfranchised people within that. And it might be because they're disenfranchised because of gender, sexuality, um, cultural background, poverty can be a big one as well. Like, you get a lot of middle class people, because that's it. They've got confidence. The level of confidence for them is, I deserve to be up here. It's not even a question. Like, I deserve to be up here. And for people who've been brought up poor, then you don't feel you deserve to be in the spotlight or to be, seen above other people. So it can be a lot harder. So yeah, and there's often, if you want to make a generalisation about gender, then it tends to be seen that the default thing is that males might think I'm funny.
How do you think we can encourage more women to get into comedy?
I think the main thing is to kind of go, it's all right. You're not being judged up there. Like, I mean, yeah, your comedy's being judged, but not your personality. You're not getting up there and having someone pick you apart for your outfit or whatever. Like, you're getting up there to tell some jokes to make people laugh. And I think the feedback I get when I say the subject of, I do stand-up comedy comes up. A lot of times people are like, oh my God, you're so brave, I would never do that. And I'm like, well, why wouldn't you? It's just not me. And you're like, I think it is. I think you might think about it. If you saw more girls doing comedy, then maybe you would kind of come around to it a little bit. But women are so funny. I mean, if it's like an everyday every other, like with a group of friends or with your own friend that's so funny, and you just have to do that little leap of faith and transfer it onto the stage. It's easily transferable.
Yeah. How did you sort of start transferring? Did you have were you fairly confident starting?
I think I did that great thing where you're more confident than your abilities actually dictate you to be. I was way overconfident. Which I think was good for the first few gigs, and then I started doing the thing about the sort of 5 to 6 gigs in when you just start bombing all the time, and you're like, this is hard. This is and it's really challenging to kind of not just sort of drop it and sort of I'll quit while I'm ahead, and have that kind of dogged determination of things. I think women are actually smarter in that sort of case. I'm like, what's better than doing this? Actually, maybe
doing something
I'm just an idiot for keeping it going, stubborn sort of stuff kind of gets into your head. And I think, maybe women are just smart enough to kind of go, I don't need to do this. I don't need to have a whole pack of strangers not laugh at something I thought was funny. This is atrocious, so...
Probably everyone's sort of on the same par if they're on the same level. If you've only done 10 gigs... you'll only probably get as many opportunities as a man who's done 10 gigs, I think, because a lot of the big gigs I don't think are as gendered as in other areas of entertainment. You do have to be good. You do have to be able to make people laugh. That's that's the one thing you need to do as a performer.
I think that's what it is. I think I'm so much more passionate and excited about when I see a really great female stand-up, because it does kind of, for me to look at that, I kind of go, oh yes, look at her, she's making it, I can get up there and just be the same as and here in Australia we have phenomenal female comedians, how amazing Celia Piccola and Felicity Ward are doing, and we have the elder sort of stateswomen as well, that there is people that we can look to at any stage of our career in comedy that we can, that is sort of really helping you and sort of opening your eyes to it.
Yeah.
And you kind of go, well, she's fucking doing it, so I can now. From what I can tell, that hasn't sort of been prevalent in the past. I think when I first started, I was for a couple of months, I was just really, really so nervous about the entire operation of, I think I'm going to do stand-up comedy. I think that it took a little while for me to accept that, not only myself, but to kind of just tell your friends. You're coming out of the comedy closet a little bit. You're like, I've kind of been doing this, especially if you're like me, come from a theatrical background. So it was definitely, but also I think the quite heartening thing that happened was people would go, oh yeah, I can see that. That's obvious. I mean, look at you. Clearly have a dumb face. Why don't you put it in front of people every so often?
I mean, what I would say is, rather than sort of saying anything negative about the scene, because I don't think there is anything that negative about the Australian comedy scene. I think there's a lot of positive things about it. But what I would say was, what I really liked about Girls' Night is that nobody would ever come to that show and say that would have been better with a guy. It's just strong comedy. Do you know what I mean? It stands alone. It's one of those things where, rather than kind of wasting energy with the argument, just do a good show.
But I think there's quite a nice clear progression for women in comedy now. I think it's really coming together for us. And the more people that do it, the more people that get on stage, the less relevant, this kind of outcome is. It'll only ever keep improving, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, most people are good enough that it doesn't matter what men or society have to say about their performance, because inevitably they'll kick it in the dick.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's also a sexist term. You can kick a gig in the vag if you want.
Yeah. Yes.